no blood, no foul.
It's no blood, no foul.
It's no blood, no foul. Emotions spill on the court when you proud to rep your city, New York's the
Hey everybody, and welcome back to the No Blood, No Foul podcast. We've got a new little episode here for you. We're calling it the No Blood, No Foul Fast Break. I'm Jim. I'm here with our executive producer Moo, and also our tech Kyle. I'm sure is going to want to chime in every once in a while. So the big news of this week is it sounds like the Knicks are going to be the most aggressive team for Collin Sexton, who is a point guard / shooting guard for the Cleveland Cavaliers. Probably if you're listening to a basketball podcast, you probably know that, but I figured I'm going to give you that sort of information. One of, I guess, the Cavs beat reporter, I don't know if he's necessarily with a paper or if he's like a blogger or whatever. I don't know a lot of the details. He kind of broke it down and said that the offer that's on the table is one of the Knicks' first round picks from this upcoming draft, Kevin Knox and Obi Toppin. And I mean, if that's the deal that's on the table, I just don't understand how you could not, as a Knicks fan, not want to do that. Even as much as Obi has came on at the later half of the year, I guess really the last month and a half, I would say. I mean, he doesn't really have a role here if we're gonna sign Randall long term. So I just feel like this is a no-brainer. It's at a position of need. We've been desperate for a playmaking guard or a guard that can create anything, little even just for himself. I mean, we saw how torturous it was been all year with Alfred Payton. And so I'm going to toss it over to Moo, and I want to get your first thoughts on what the proposed deal is. And what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I've always been a big proponent for talent, right? And so talent wins in the NBA, especially nowadays. Sexton is talented. There's no question that he's a very gifted player. For that package, yeah, absolutely. I think most Knicks fans need to come to, especially, the ones that are always looking to tank and they're always looking, for the shoot, the next shoe to drop, or the Knicks are going to re-sign Randall. There's really no reason and no way they can afford not to, right? You got this guy. He's most improved. It doesn't matter what he did in the playoffs. He's your best player. You cannot not bring him back. So if you do bring him back, he is your power forward. Obi Toppin is a power forward. In my opinion, he is nothing else. Yep. To want to keep him as a backup for the next 3-4 years, it just really doesn't make sense. And he's the best thing going. Either the 19th or the 21st picks. If it's just one or the other, yeah, absolutely. It just makes no sense not to. I think the value is great. I think some fans aren't they concerned about his contract, what he wants, the next contract? How many years does he have left? 2?
He's got 1 year left. So he can theoretically be extended this summer if he wanted. But obviously we're not going to do that if we make that trade.
Right.
I feel like too, it's the same thing with Randall is that you kind of get a year to be show me what you're worth. Because obviously the pandemic and having mostly empty arenas, certainly benefited. I don't know. I don't think that too many players really broke out this year other than Randall and RJ. So I don't really know how much the empty arenas really played a factor, but yeah. So it's we have a show me year for a guy that's probably not going to play. Even if Obi is great, there's really no way to get him into the rotation because I can't imagine Tibbs playing Randall and him together. I just don't think that's going to happen.
Yeah, I agree. I don't see that happening. I think he's always, even if he comes on, let's say, worst case scenario, Randall, takes his playoff performance and carries it over. Right. What are the chances of that? Is it possible? Yeah, anything's possible, but I don't expect it. I think, the playoffs, it mostly was an aberration. I think if you get him more talent and someone like Sexton, he'll do a lot better. I think he definitely it took too much on himself and it kind of just screwed him up. If you add someone like Sexton or someone, more talented, whomever, we've talked about guys, I think he'll be fine. So Randall as kind of the 1B with a 1A, which obviously should be the next goal. I think that's a perfect kind of match, and you don't really need Toppin. One of those two picks, I mean,
Whatever.
yeah, whatever, right? And who else are we? Knox.
Yeah. Who cares?
Who cares? Yeah.
Yeah. The ship has sailed on Knox.
Yeah.
Well, and it's so funny too. It's like I read this article from I guess one of the Cleveland papers, and they were like kind of like talking about how they didn't really need a power forward because they have Kevin Love and Larry Nance Jr. like available. And I was just thinking to myself, I was just like, that's silly.
That
like I was like, none of those guys are here long term. But like you could tell it was the Cleveland front office trying to be like, we actually really want RJ Barrett. And you just know that that's never going to happen. Like Cleveland, sorry, like don't even ask. You're wasting your breath.
I will also say, with regards to Collin Sexton's contract, if we take back him and we don't take back Love, and we sign nobody for longer than 1 year, we will have $42 million in cap space in 2022, more than enough to sign a max free agent. So we would have Sexton, RJ, Randall, and potentially a max free agent.
Well, that's what I was saying to one of the guys in the forum. He was just like, I'd rather be patient. Like, I'd rather wait to see if SGA and I was like, Shea or LaVine become available. They might ask for trades or whatever. I was like, my first thought was one, that if I'm Zach LaVine, like, I want to go to free agency. Like, you got traded from Minnesota to Chicago. I would want to choose my own destiny. Now, I understand, like, you lose out on a year if you jump from from one team to the other on your max contract, but he's still, I think, 25. So it's like you'll be up for another max at 29 when you're in the middle of your prime career. Like you're definitely going to be able to grab a 5-year contract then. But that's why I was saying it's just like I don't think making this move takes us out of making that other move. And just as you said, Kyle, like we'll still have max space. I think you could definitely do this and then make a compelling pitch to LaVine, being like, "Hey, look." You know, you've got Randall here that's your age. You've got RJ Barrett at 21, 22 by next summer. You've got Sexton, who's now 23. You know, like, come join this group. You know, we've got ballers. And then obviously still we would still have IQ and Mitch and potentially, you know, a first and second round pick this year to be like, hey, come and join us. And I think that's more of a compelling pitch. Because that's my plan, at least, is like, let's build a good enough of a roster to show up to Zach LaVine's door at midnight, July 1st next year, and being like, come to New York.
Yeah, I think that's really key. I think some fans are not really in touch with reality, and they're thinking that these guys are just going to want to come, right? They're not. We've seen it, right? We've seen it for 2 decades. The only guys that want to come are, I don't want to say guys that are kind of stupid, but guys New York guys, right?
Yeah,
they're thinking the best, whatever, and they realize, holy crap, I don't have any talent here, I can't do anything, and now I'm being blamed for everything. So you need talent. Absolutely, you need talent here to get talent. You don't get top tier talent if you don't have talent. Nobody wants to be the first guy.
Yeah. Because even if you look at Brooklyn, like they had some guys here, like Karis LeVert was still there, Jared Allen, who was there, Joe Harris. So it's like they weren't like a completely empty. They had their 2 max spots, but like they weren't completely devoid of talent. And that's what we were looking at when we were in that same position. It was just like, oh, do you really want to come here with just RJ Barrett and then Randall, who struggled that year? Randall wasn't on the squad. It was just like, do you really want to come here with Randall and Mitchell Robinson? Like one's a rookie and one was like a foul-prone big man. Like you have to have some people here to even make a compelling pitch.
Yeah, and I think if you factor in Tibbs, I know folks are with LaVine, people are saying that Tibbs was the one to trade him, so he's gonna not want to come. He'll come if it makes sense for him, right? I don't think players hold grudges like that. You got Tibbs, if you have Randall and he continues on, and you add Sexton and Barrett takes another jump, and Robinson comes back and stays healthy. That's a really talented team.
There's some players.
Yeah. And then you can still, right, you can argue with LaVine that, I know you want to be kind of the alpha, right? Well, you can, but you've also got, kind of 1B and 1C right next to you, right?
Yeah.
So it's not you don't have to carry the burden or the load yourself. I think that's a really good potential move. Definitely for the price, right? There's a point where the price becomes too much. And I'm not the biggest fan necessarily of Sexton per se, but I think the talent, what he does if on the floor, right, off court, whatever's going on in his head, it's probably not ideal. But I think on the floor talent, he's an excellent fit, and if he's gettable, I mean, you have to go for it.
So what's the max that you're willing to give up to get Sexton in here? Would you be willing to take on Love's contract? Because I feel like that's going to be the thing that's going to come up. Very similar to what happened with KP.
Mm-hmm.
It's like we ended up taking back a little bit less, or not really being able to get as good of a player, because we were like, listen, we need you to take Courtney Lee and we need you to take Tim Hardaway Jr. Would that be something that you're willing to do?
How long is Love's contract? 2 more years?
2 more years.
Until 2023.
But so let me throw this out there as well, and this is something Kyle and I have spoken to about in the forum. We could theoretically stretch Love next year and have $32 million in cap space. I'm not sure what LaVine's max would be next year. Kyle, I don't know if that's something you can pull up real quick, but $32 million might be his max, and we would have to pay Love $10 million a year for the next 3 years. We just did it with Noah. Just something to think about.
Honestly, I would prefer to give a little bit more and not to take Love.
Yeah.
I prefer the flexibility better.
So I don't know off the top of my head. I'm thinking it will be in the 30 million range. I think it might be 34 to 35 million will be his max salary.
Okay. You might be able to finagle those couple extra million to get it some way, but that'll be up to Brock Aller. So I guess my other idea and thought is, would you be willing to sacrifice, say, they're like, without Love, I'll give you 19, 21, and 32. Would that be something that you would consider, or do you think that's too rich?
19, 21, 32, Toppin, and Knox.
Yeah.
I think that's too much for 1 year. Right. With if he had more years, yeah. But the fact that you're gonna have to try to re-sign him, and I think the reports are he's looking for as much as he can get.
Yeah.
I think that's definitely too much.
Yeah.
I would not do that.
Yeah, I mean, that's fair. I think if they wanted more draft capital, I would probably try to pull Obi back. Maybe. Mm-hmm. I don't know. I don't know what would be worth it more for us. Because like you also theoretically too, it's like we know how Tibbs operates. Like IQ really only got minutes because he was good. Like how many minutes are these guys in the late teens, early 20s going to get? Because like that's like also been like another big debate too among people about giving up these picks at all, is that we would rather use them for something else. And it's like, unless another star asks out in the next 2 weeks, because like the draft is what, July 25th?
Right.
And this is something I've been hammering home for months. As soon as you drive these picks off the car lot, they become a lot less valuable.
Yep. Toppin just one game and his value tanked. Yeah, I mean, I think that's why the general feel for me is the Knicks are either trying to trade up or out. Does it make sense to stay put and pick 3 guys? I don't see the benefit to it. 1 guy, okay. So if it costs me two of the 3 picks, okay, I would definitely say that. Yeah, all 3. Yeah. But that's because I don't think that the Cavs will get that much value from anyone else that seems to be interested, right? So it's ultimately what you give up is based on what other teams are willing to give up, and I don't see other teams willing to give up a lot for Sexton. I think he's got enough baggage that his value and 1 year left. I don't think his value is as high as his talent, which is
Well, you also got to think too is like how many teams really need a point guard? Like I'm trying to think off the top of my head. Even like I guess Nola needs a point guard because if you think about it, like Lonzo, I don't think Lonzo is really one. The Magic have like a bunch of point guards, combo guards that they're still trying to figure it out. I mean, maybe Houston, but Houston's like they don't need to commit any money right now. I mean, there's not a lot of suitors, and like I've seen a rumor like that like there's a hero for Sexton swap like that's potential with Miami, and I don't see that making really any sense either. I mean, for Cleveland, it makes all the sense in the world, but like I don't know if that makes sense for Miami, especially if they're going to have to make a decision about Duncan Robinson as well, who's going to get probably $20 million, you know?
I mean, my guess with Miami is that they're kind of, kind of in the same boat as the Knicks. They're looking for somebody that can actually create, right, and easy shots for himself. And then they kind of missing that. Is Tyler Hero valuable? I mean, I think he's overrated. I'll just come out and say, I think he's a very good player, but I don't think he's as valuable as some fans seem to think he is. Is that equal to Toppin and draft pick? I don't know. It's hard to say. But I would not go crazy, right? So you don't want to give up everything. You give up everything for if you're gonna get a Dame Lillard.
Yeah.
Right. But Sexton is definitely not that.
Truth.
Yeah, I'm concerned about all the rumors. I mean, it's just rumors, right? That nobody likes him.
Yeah.
Right? So, do you really? That's a risk, right? You don't want on a team like this to get someone in that is a potential malcontent that doesn't want to play, the right way.
Yeah.
So that's a value. If I was a GM, if I was the Knicks, that would be what I'd be arguing against, right? If somebody's asking me for RJ Barrett for Sexton, my contention is, what about all the baggage, right? So you guys, right? It's pretty public that a lot of the players supposedly think that he's once he gets the ball, nobody's ever seeing it again. Yeah. And it's got to be a reason why the Cavs are looking to trade someone that talented. I think they know that he's a high maintenance guy, and high maintenance has a cost to it, right? When you look for a trade. So now,
but that's what I feel like that's why you have a coach like Tom Thibodeau. Like, if you're able to get through to him, I feel like Tibbs and Johnny Bryant and Kenny Payne are going to be the guys that can get through to him. It's like how Woodson was able to get through to J.R. Smith 1 year. Nobody else in his entire career could get through to him, but Woodson was able to do that. I feel like, and he was on the Knicks staff. It'd be nice if he was still available, but good for him to out in Indiana. Congratulations. That I feel like we have the guys that we can, and especially somebody so young, it's like we have the coaches, we have, high character guys in IQ and RJ. And I think Randall is a pretty high character guy too, that, you'd be able to invite him in and hopefully it'd be a better environment.
Yeah.
Because obviously
hopefully you got
Cleveland,
Rose back, right?
Right. And
that's stabilizing.
Rose can be his mentor, and it's like way less toxic than Cleveland.
Yeah.
So
so.
that's like as positive of a spin really as you can get.
Yeah. I mean, ultimately, Sexton he's not ideal, right? So I think a lot of fans are looking for ideal, the perfect player, right? Perfect players the Knicks can't get. So it doesn't mean you do nothing, right? I think that's you have to do something to address your biggest needs, and the next biggest needs is what Sexton would bring.
Well, I think that's the frustrating thing is, and you see it a lot, where it's like there's a segment of the fans that like want you to sit and do nothing because the right guy isn't available, and it's pretty much either that or tank. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like, oh, let's just sit on cap space for forever, and it's like that's not that's not how this works.
That has no value.
Right, we're gonna have to pay guys eventually, and we can't. We've already been bad for 20 years and have nothing to show for it, except for 3 years with Carmelo Anthony and last year.
Yep.
Like you can't. That's just not something you can do, and like that's why it's like you see people that just shoot these ideas down, but they don't have a plan on their own. It's like, well, you don't have a plan, you just hate mine. To quote Hamilton.
The plan is to create cap space and just have, the top players decide, I'll just come to the Knicks. They don't really have anything, but, to make Knicks fans happy, I'll come. Nobody's going to do that.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, I think definitely, I'm sure they're going to explore, right? The Sexton's not the only guy they're going to be looking at. They're going to, look at a whole bunch of guys, see if any of these guys they can pry off. It's what's good for me is it does look like the Knicks, they know obviously what they need and they're trying.
Yeah.
Right. So that's what you like. And there's more confidence with this front office than previous front offices to make the right choice. I don't get the sense that this front office will overpay for anything.
No.
Right. With previous front offices, yeah. I mean, they were overpaying left and right. I think this one is a much better front office, and I'm looking forward to whatever I expect something to happen. I don't think they're going to sit pat and stick and draft 3 guys and do whatever and wait for next year. I don't see that happening.
But yeah, so like my thought is too with this off season, I feel like after the finals are done, I feel like you have Leon Rose, you call Chris Paul, and you call Uncle Dennis as well. Right. And I feel like you kick the tires on trying to bring Kawhi and Chris Paul here. And if that's a no, I think that's when you pull the trigger on the Sexton deal.
Yeah.
I think that's got to be the thought process here is like, if you can bring Paul and Kawhi here, you do it. But if that's not the case, I mean, we just saw that Kawhi has a partial torn ACL. I don't know how long that takes to recover, or if there's like, a long recovery time with that or anything like that. But
yeah, it's weird because that's kind of like with KD and the Achilles, right?
Yeah.
So, and KD looks like he's, mostly fine. So do you take that chance and say,
right.
Kawhi, whatever, you have a partial tear, we'll still give you, whatever contract you want. Right. And we'll just wait for you.
Yeah.
I think
I don't even know if he'll be out a whole year. You know what I mean? That could be a partial tear, could be a few months for all I know. That's something we'll have to look at and find out. But yeah, like I feel like that would be my plan. Because like
if they can fit Kawhi and CP3, yeah, absolutely.
Well, so what we would have to do is that you would have to sign Kawhi out and then do a sign and trade for Paul.
Okay.
So you would have to have the Suns, take whatever. I don't know what it would cost because you never obviously get equal value, and you're usually just doing this as a favor to the player.
Right.
So yeah. But yeah, so that's pretty much my thoughts on the situation. You kick the tires on that, and then you try to make a run at Sexton. Moo, do you have any more final thoughts so we can wrap up our fast break?
Yeah, I mean, the concern with Sexton is what happens if things go wrong. Things happen, right? If he was the type of player where you could be pretty much guaranteed nothing would go wrong, the Knicks wouldn't be able to get him.
Not for Obi and Knox.
Not for that package. Right. The reason we can is because there's concerns. Right. So it's a risk.
Yeah, I mean he's not a very good defender. I just want to. I know plus minus when you have a terrible team like Sexton is really bad, but he was negative 377 on the year in plus minus, and I don't. Kyle said we only had Peyton in negative in our plus minus this year.
So the Peyton was our biggest negative at negative 98. The only other starter, really the only other guy to play significant minutes and the whole season was Noel. There were guys like Frank, Knox, Mitch were all minus, but Noel was a -2. He was the only one who played anywhere near Peyton's minutes. And then our next lowest starter was Bullock at plus 107. Jeez. That really tells you a lot about Elfrid Payton.
Yeah. So, I mean, again, it's like you look at the Cavaliers roster and how bad it is. And you know what? It is he does have a negative on and off as well. But so that's a little bit concerning. But like you said, if he didn't have red flags and concerns about defense and playmaking, we wouldn't be able to get him so cheap.
Correct.
So I think we're in agreement that if that's the deal on the table, and I think we'd probably both agree we'd throw in that the top of the second round pick to grease the wheels a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so that's it. We would totally do this deal if that's on the table, and we would throw in a second round pick if that's enough to send it over the edge for the Cavs. So yeah, that's it. This is another episode of the No Blood, No Foul Actually, this is the first episode of the No Blood, No Foul Fast Break. Hopefully you guys like what you heard, so you click that like button and subscribe, and we're out.
Congratulations till we run that clock out. MSG to Mecca, this is our house. NYC forever when we mob out. See that kid drip, got that clock clout.